here we go. Hey everybody, it's Monday, April 20th. I can't believe it's almost the end of the month, and we're here for another episode of Chatting with Agnes and Cecilia, brought to you by Rogue Tulips. And notice our fancy new Zoom background, thanks to Canva. You can get one of these at canva.com. We're here today with Edward Segal, CAE, and we're really excited because this doesn't happen very often. We have an author the day before his book launch, and his new book is called Crisis Ahead. We're going to talk about one section of that book today, but first I'm going to throw it over to Edward to say a few words about himself. Welcome.
Hi, Cecilia. It's great to be with you. I have a checkered, diversified background in politics, public relations, journalism, and crisis management. I was also the chief executive officer of two trade associations in California. And for the last several years, I've been specializing in crisis management, how to prepare for it, how to manage it, and how to recover it. And I've put all my advice and recommendations and insights into this new book.
That's fantastic, Edward. Let's just jump right in because there's so many great sections in this book. I also want to share your animated book cover with our audience so they can really get an idea of what your book's atmosphere is, for lack of a better word at the moment. The subtitle is 101 Ways to Prepare for and Bounce Back from Disaster, Scandals, and Other Emergencies. And I think this is more than appropriate for today's world that we're living in, especially with COVID-19. However, other crises are going on around us that we might be missing. One of the things I think we should focus on today, Edward, is 10 reasons why you need a crisis plan. So could we discuss that for a few minutes?
Sure, I'd be glad to. Well, you really need a crisis plan in order to know exactly what you're going to do when a crisis hits. And I say when, because in this very dangerous and uncertain world, it's not a matter of if you're going to have a crisis, it's when, and how you're going to respond, and how you're going to recover. And one of the most important reasons you need a crisis plan is to know what you're going to do when that crisis hits. Who's going to do what? When are they going to do it? How are they going to do it? Where are they going to do it? Why are they going to do it? If you don't know ahead of time how you're going to respond to any crisis, you're going to be losing valuable, essential time trying to figure out what you're going to do, time you should be spending doing something about it. So this plan, any plan that you prepare ahead of time, will help make sure that when you have a crisis, things will go smoother rather than rougher. And I urge people to take a look at the plan that I have in my book. I have a Word version of the template of the crisis plan in the book available on a password protection section of my website, and people can go there to download the plan and customize it for their own company or organization.
Well, that's really generous of you to share such a valuable tool, and I know that people will appreciate it. I have a question. In crime, they say the first 48 hours are the most important. So in relating that to crises, what are the crucial hours immediately after you know that you have one?
Well, I'd say the first 2 minutes of a crisis is probably the most important because, and I have a checklist in my book of who you need to contact immediately when you find out about a crisis, and importantly, can people reach you? Sometimes you'll be aware of the crisis and you want to notify others, and depending upon the crisis, they might learn about the crisis first, and they're going to have to contact you. So I think the first 2 minutes of any crisis really sets the tone for how the rest of the crisis is going to unfold. And I think you're barking up the wrong tree with that. No. I guess you'll let that one out.
Sorry about I think they're barking at the lawnmower in the background. Sorry about that.
That's all right. So in the first 2 minutes, if you have a crisis plan already, you'll know where it is, how to activate it, and just follow what you had laid out in the plan. And if you don't have that plan in the first 2 minutes, you're going to figure, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do it. Oh my God, what are we going to do next? You don't want to have that reaction to any crisis plan. So the more you're prepared for it, the easier it'll be for you and other members of your organization.
So what advice do you give to your clients to avoid panic?
Well, first, breathe. In and out.
Always good advice.
Don't hold your breath and see how long you can hold your breath before you turn blue. breathe, and try to remain as calm as you can, because as a leader of an association or any organization, you really want to set the tone for the others to follow. And you can set a good tone or a bad tone. So don't say or do anything that could add to the panic, make people even more anxious or nervous or afraid than they already are. That's step one. Step two, find out what happened. Before you can do anything on a crisis, you need to know what I call the 5 W's and the H. It's the same 5 W's and H that reporters use in their stories. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. All the details about the crisis. And if you don't know the answer to some of those questions, that's okay. You just have to move quickly to get the answers to those questions in order for you to make an informed, intelligent, strategic decision about what to do next.
So how often can a crisis bring you down? Is that something that happens regularly, or is it something that's a tense situation, but you can usually work your way through it?
Well, a crisis doesn't necessarily have to bring you down. It really depends on how bad the crisis is and how it affects your company or organization and how many people it does affect. I've studied thousands of different crisis situations over the years, and some of the crises are internal for a company or organization, and they happen all behind closed doors, and no one in the outside world ever finds out about them. Other crises are the fodder of emails, tweets, and web posts and headlines, and can be drag on for days, weeks, months, or years. So it really depends on your organization. And in my book, I run through a list of basic things any company can do to help ensure that they are doing the best they can to prevent a crisis. Of course, a crisis just is a crisis, and it's simply impossible to plan or protect against every possible situation from happening, but it is possible to plan and prepare for any situation if it happens, and that's what my book is all about.
Well, should people ever say no comment?
Saying no comment to a reporter, to employee, to anybody, really sends the wrong message. It implies that you are trying to hide something, that you're trying to cover something up, or you know the truth, but you're not going to respond and tell them what they want to know. So rather than saying no comment, and it depends what the question is, I would say, that's an interesting question. I'm sorry, I don't have that information right now, but I will look into it and I will get back to you right away. That's one possible response. Another possible response in a crisis is, I'm sorry, I'd love to answer that question, but we're just in the process of finding out key details and information about this crisis. And as soon as we know, we'll let you and others know what we found out. So variations of those phrases, I think, are much more important to use than simply saying no comment. No comment simply sends the wrong message for a lot of reasons.
So when it comes to associations, Edward, in your opinion, who is the best spokesperson in a crisis? Is it the CEO of the association or the chairman of the board of directors?
I think a crisis should be managed from the top down, and the people who are the public face of a crisis should be at the highest levels of the organizational chart. It's okay for a PR person or marketing person to work behind the scenes, or the lawyer or the HR person, whoever might have additional expertise in the issues related to the crisis. But in terms of putting a public face and of sending a message to company investors, customers, the public, whoever, the higher up in the organization, people hear from, that sends a good message. So I'd start with the president, the CEO, the chairman of the board. But you should only have one spokesperson, one person. If you have more than one, it's really difficult to coordinate the message, and you need to make sure that you're speaking with one voice, and that's always best done with one individual serving as a spokesperson.
Well, do we have time for you to review your list of 10 reasons to have a crisis plan in place?
If you put this on pause, yes.
Okay.
All right, the 10 basic reasons why any company and organization needs a crisis plan. You need what to do in a crisis. You need to know who should do it. You need to know when to do it. You need to know where to do it. You need to know why you should do it, and you certainly need to know how to do it. Beyond that, a crisis plan will help you protect your company, your people, your organization, your credibility, your image, your reputation. It can provide confidence to your senior staff, your investors, your customers, your clients, that if you have a crisis, you'll know what to do in the moment, and you'll be able to do it strategically, efficiently, and effectively. Having a crisis plan will also lessen the impact of the crisis on your organization and allow you to respond a lot faster, easier, and more efficiently if you have the plan than if you don't. And then the last reason you need a crisis plan is that by following the plan, you'll do a much better job of putting the crisis behind you. In any crisis, it's absolutely essential to move as quickly and appropriately as possible and to get back as soon to normal as you can. And a crisis plan will help you do all that.
And can your plan be applied to every crisis? Now, keeping in mind every crisis will be different, have different details, and be a different situation, but can your one plan address every crisis?
I think so, because I designed the crisis plan so that it can be customized for any company, any organization, in any industry, in any profession. And the plan is based on more than 24 major categories of key essential information that you need to know when you're planning for a crisis, and you can use the same plan in dealing with a crisis. Some crisis situations, when they strike, you will automatically know, because of the nature of the crisis, the answers to a lot of questions, or the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and the how. Other crises, you might only know the answers to one or two of those questions. Mm-hmm. Whatever you know is better than not knowing anything at all. And as developments and events warrant, as a crisis unfolds, then you can fill in the blanks on the plan and move based on what you know as soon as you know it.
Well, and we're actually close to the end of our content time already, which is just amazing, because I know we could talk about another 4 hours just on this topic. But Edward, if you had to summarize in one sentence advice on crisis management, what might that be?
The advice is that get ready, because it's not a matter of if you're going to have a crisis, it's when you're going to have a crisis. And how, let me start that over again.
Okay.
My one piece of advice is to prepare for a crisis. No matter what business you're in, what industry or profession, it's not a matter of if you're going to have a crisis, it's when you're going to have a crisis. And how you prepare for it now is going to help determine how you're going to deal with it when, not if, that crisis strikes.
That's great. That is great advice and easy to remember. I like get ready. I think that's the easiest advice to remember for a crisis. So Edward, the book's coming out tomorrow. It's called Crisis Ahead. Let's show the GIF again, because it's a cool GIF. Where can people get your book starting tomorrow, April 21st?
Well, it's available on Amazon. Click on the Kindle or ebook option when you find the book on the page. You also can find links to buy the book on my website at publicrelations.com. That's publicrelations.com. There is a button at the top of the page to buy the book, and it'll take you to a page where they have the option of ordering the book from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and independent bookstores around the country.
That's fantastic that you're going to be in independent bookstores. I love that you're supporting them. That's great. And so that's all the time we have for today. We may have a couple little glitches in this recording today, folks. We'll see, but that's the fun of it, right? So I'm Cecilia Supp. I'm the principal of Rogue Tulips and its founder. My usual co-host and friend, Agnes Coleman, who is also part of our Rogue Tulips network, couldn't be with us today because of scheduling conflicts. So we know that she will be back on our next episode. So I want to thank Edward again. Buy his book. It's a great book. I think you'll enjoy it. You'll get a lot out of it. It's very practical and very usable. So thank you, Edward. And if people want to contact you to follow up, should they just go to publicrelations.com?
They can, or send an email to me at crisisahead@gmail.com. That's crisisahead@gmail.com. And I'm glad to answer their questions and see how I can help them.
That's great. Thank you, Edward, and thanks for being a guest. We look forward to having you back, as your book is definitely going to be a series for us.
Thank you. I enjoyed the time and look forward to coming back.
Great, thank you. And we're getting ready to go rogue here for this week, but I want to thank you all for joining us. And like Agnes and I say, take 15 minutes and talk to somebody because you might learn something. If you want to learn more about Rogue Tulips, you can find out more about us at roguetulips.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.